Well, hello. Today we are going to be discussing the Jackson era. Due to that, I'm going to be out of town next week. I'm recording this for you, and you are to review the video and complete the assignments as planned, and I'll be checking in. As you realize, there are 7 presidents before Andrew Jackson: George Washington, John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, James Monroe, John Quincy Adams, and of course, Andrew Jackson. This is chapter 11 in your textbook. The Jackson era takes place between 1824 and 1845. In 1824, John Quincy Adams is elected president over Andrew Jackson. The essential question will be, how did political beliefs and events shape Andrew Jackson's presidency? Andrew Jackson, 7th President of the United States from 1829 to 1837. He had a tough life. Parents immigrated from Ireland. Father died before his birth. Mother died when he was 14 years of age. He had 2 brothers who also died. He made a name for himself in the military. At age 13, he joined the Continental Army. He was a major general of the Tennessee militia, led campaign against the Creek Indians in Georgia, and in 1815 led military victory over the British at the Battle of New Orleans. As a politician, one time he was a lawyer, he was a member of the House of Representatives. He switched over and was elected to the U.S. Senate. One time he was a circuit judge, and eventually became President of the United States. Married Rachel. They had 2 adopted children. He owned a large cotton plantation in Tennessee, and he had over 150 slaves. He killed a man in a pistol duel, and that's brought up during the campaign by John Quincy Adams supporters as if he was a murderer. But back then, dueling was one way to settle arguments, and when this happened, the pistol duel was due to the fact that a person said some very bad things about his wife, and in turn, Jackson challenged the person to a duel. You may have in your pocket a $20 bill. You will see a picture of Andrew Jackson. In fact, they refer to the $20 bill as a Jackson. Andrew Jackson has a few firsts under his belt. He was the first assassination attempt on a sitting U.S. president occurred on January 30th, 1835, when Robert Lawrence failed to slay Andrew Jackson. Andrew Jackson was first president to represent the Democratic Party. This is when the parties they settled down to 2 parties: the Democratic Party and the National Republican Party. John Quincy Adams represented the National Republicans. Andrew Jackson represented the Democratic Party in the election of 1828. Andrew Jackson was the first president to articulate that as president, he represented all the people, not just the elite. And he received the name as the president of the common man. Andrew Jackson was the first president to serve as a U.S. representative, a senator, and a president. Andrew Jackson was the first president from a state west of the Appalachian Mountains. There's a few words that we have to make sure everyone fully understands. These vocabulary words will be on your next exam. Suffrage, the right to vote. Women will not get the right to vote until the 19th Amendment of the Constitution. When the United States was founded, only white men with property had suffrage, had the right to vote. Now think about this. White men, and they must own property. At the time of the American Civil War, most white men had been granted suffrage, meaning that they did not have to own land in order to vote in elections. In 1920, women were granted suffrage. The passing of the 19th Amendment granted women the right to vote in all United States elections. The Voting Rights Act of 1965 outlawed discrimination, voting practices that denied suffrage to many African Americans in the United States. So as you can see, it was a long time before we made it to a point where every American citizen had the right to vote. Another vocabulary word, majority, meaning more than half. When there is a majority rule, a law will pass if more than half of the voters vote for it. The word is majority. Bureaucracy. We've heard this word many, many times. But do we truly understand what it means? It is a system in which non-elected officials carry out laws and policies. These are non-elected officials. It's a bureaucracy. If there is a government bureaucracy, government actions are carried out by bureaus, administrators, and officials. They were not elected to their positions. They were appointed or hired. If a president gives jobs in the bureaucracy to people in his same party or to friends, it is called the spoils system. Spoils system. Make sure that's in your notes. Spoils system. Andrew Jackson did this extensively after being elected. He terminated many of the bureaucrats and replaced them with people who supported him. Morning. Tariff. The next vocabulary word is tariff, a tax on imports or exports. In 1828, merchants had to pay a tariff on goods that were imported. As a result, goods from Europe cost more. An example in today's world, in 2012, U.S. imports had to pay a tariff on tires from China. Now let's think why the United States placed a tariff on tires from China. A tariff is a way to protect jobs. If we have factories in the United States making tires, and we're paying the U.S. citizens, the employees, say $25 an hour to make these tires. When these tires are taken into a store. You pay a certain price for that tire, which would pay for the labor to build the tires, the materials, the transportation, and a profit. China can make those tires using labor, making much, much less. In some cases, less than $2 a day for labor. Then they can place those tires on ships, bring them to America, and sell them in our stores. They can sell those tires for much less than that we sell our tires here in the United States, made in the United States. In turn, people would buy the cheaper tire rather than buy the tires made in America. So to protect jobs in America, we increase the value or the price of the tires from China by placing a tariff on them. Nullification. Nullification is to cancel or make ineffective. When a contract is declared no longer valid is an example of a situation where you nullify a contract. You will nullify the benefits of exercise if exercising is followed by eating ice cream. So, you may exercise, but if you don't change your diet, you cancel out all that exercise that you did. So you nullify it. Secede. To leave or withdraw. As we get closer to the Civil War, you will see that the southern states seceded from the Union in the Civil War. During Jackson's presidency, some Southerners wanted their states to secede from the Union. So the vocabulary word is secede. So there's your 6 words: suffrage, majority, tariff, nullification, secede, bureaucracy. It's very important that you study these words for your upcoming test. We're going to talk briefly about the election of 1824 and the election of 1828. As you can see by the chart, there were 4 candidates for the presidency in 1824: John Quincy Adams, Andrew Jackson, William Crawford, and Henry Clay. The electoral votes. Andrew Jackson received more electoral votes. More people voted for Andrew Jackson than any other candidate. But Andrew Jackson did not receive a majority, having more than 50% of the votes. Therefore, the House of Representatives had to decide on who's going to be president. Now, even though Henry Clay received 47 electoral votes, you notice at the House of Representatives, he received 0 votes. That's because Henry Clay made an arrangement with John Quincy Adams and gave his support to Adams in order to defeat Andrew Jackson. And this is why John Quincy Adams became president of the United States. 4 years later, in the election of 1828, we are now with 2 candidates because, 2 candidates because we have 2 decisive parties, the Democrat Republicans and the National Republicans. As you can see, Andrew Jackson overwhelmingly beat out John Quincy Adams for president. All right, we're going to end this here, and we will take it up the following week. Please review this. It's a recording, so you can start it over and over and complete the discussion questions for the week, and you'll see your assignments. Thank you, and have a good week.